Do demons exist? Now, many of my clients have reported that they suffer from intrusive thoughts or self-limiting beliefs. But when we use secular psychoanalytic terminology, such as intrusive thoughts, self-limiting beliefs, inner critic, all of this type of stuff, this is seen as nothing from abnormal. It seems like a pretty normal thing, right, that people deal with. It is instead a very common experience that most go through at varying degrees of psychological difficulty in their lives. Everyone goes through this kind of stuff, depending on their self-esteem and their self-image and their sense of psychological security with themselves. But nearly every time people explain this mental experience, they all describe it with the analogy or the metaphorical description of a demon. So let me give you an example. It is as if a demon is speaking to me in the back of my mind, telling me no, or do not do this certain thing, or the opposite of what I should believe about myself, reinforcing an opinion that undermines my potential or capabilities as a person towards what I want to do. Now, this is the kind of general thing that this kind of individual might be explaining. So it's very interesting. This constant theme of a demon or the demon speaking in the back of my head, telling me the opposite thing of what I want to do and what I desire to seek for. Now, in a secular sense, as I was saying, which is basically psychoanalysis, it's very secular, it's not very religious, is it? That we could call this an inner critic rather than a demon. But why the term demon? Why is it so consistently used within these individuals that I've worked with? You might think, oh, maybe because they're religious, but not really. I've asked them this type of question. A lot of people are not religious that I've worked with. Well, from a symbolic and a metaphorical description, the shoe very much fits the description of a demon, because these voices they are deceitful. They're voices of deceit, contradiction, and falsehood that embody you could say, demonic force of negative manipulative energy that is within the mind towards our own highest good and potential. Because usually these thoughts manifest or happen in relation to something we want to achieve, or something that's going to embody the highest good of ourselves towards an ambition or an achievement that we want to have. Even when we are victim to the inner critic, we are not even in favor of it. So we're never in favor of this thing that's in the back of our head telling us the opposite of what we should be doing. We want it to go away. We don't agree with it. So it's very much kind of invading our consciousness. It's a form of extreme oppression, you could say. Now, the demon, in terms of mythology and symbolism, has always been described as embodying the archetypal description of the trickster, the deceiver, the entity that tries to manipulate and fool and tempt Christ in the desert through the temptation that Jesus goes through within the desert. Now, in a very real sense, intrusive thoughts are trying to do the same thing to you. They can be perceived as having their own influence within the mind the more we feed these thoughts with our attention through rumination, for example. No different to how Christ, which psychologically is a symbol of the self, as Carl Jung was describing, is very much challenged and is being challenged by self-doubt through the voice of Satan within the desert, through the temptation. And as we notice, Satan, the devil, is trying to gaslight, he's trying to contradict, he's trying to confuse and manipulate Jesus Christ within the desert, and trying to manipulate and confuse Christ of his own truth that he is embodying and that in which he is, through semantics, through questioning, through language, by asking him questions, by making him contradict, or trying to get him to fall into self-contradiction. And this is what intrusive thoughts are. This is what self-limiting beliefs and how they act. And this is why people may just describe these as demons, or a demon speaking to me in the back of my head. Now, Christ never falls for temptation or for any of these lies. He is a sinless man. He is the Son of God, which is why he is the ultimate ideal of man, of course, or the ultimate ideal for man. But when we fall for these intrusive thoughts ourselves, for example, especially those that undermine our potential for greatness towards the good, we end up feeling defeated, as if something has overcome us. And this can lead us into a depression. This can lead us into self-deprecation. This can lead us into low forms of spiritedness and the denial of our own capabilities. And this, you could say, is some form of spiritual warfare because it attacks our spirit. It attacks that in which describes our enthusiasm, the spiritedness of the individual, the ability for someone to go out into the world and fulfill their potential and be positive and affirmative with their own lives. It attacks that sense of self. Now, the psychoanalytic field would trace these specific intrusions as being rooted in trauma from the past. And this is totally accurate. This is a totally fine thing to do, especially from those who spoke with intention of cruelty from high authoritative positions. And as a result, the intrusions are a form of superego injunction, as Freud would call it, whereby the superego, which is the part of a person's mind that acts as a self-critical conscience, molded and reflected by the societal standards in which you live in from parents and authority, it acts as the reason to why this happens. And this, to their credit, of course, most, if not all of these self-limiting beliefs and thoughts and all of this type of stuff regarding self-image and self-belief originate from these social dynamics. The psychoanalytic field very much got it right. But either way, we can use whatever form of interpretative truth as we like in relation to understanding these forms of psychological phenomena. As all literal, I would say, as all literal, symbolic, and metaphorical truth all hold forms of truth that are relevant and that are worthy of investigation, that can allow us to develop a deeper understanding towards the depth of the situation that we are dealing with. So that is kind of my take on this kind of thing. It's very interesting to look at the symbolic relationship we have to mythology and archetypes and all this type of stuff. And then looking at the literal interpretation through something that's very atheistic and secular, like psychoanalysis, that tries to understand these things from a more literal interpretation rather than something that is very much imbued with spirituality and other forms of meaning. So in that regard, I very much look at these things from both perspectives. And it is very good to do that. And that is what Carl Jung was very much affirmative towards with his own investigation of understanding psychology, the psyche, the soul, the minds of individuals within existence itself. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to give it a like, comment your thoughts down below. Tell me what you think in relation to these types of things when it comes to the symbolic meaning and the literal meaning, the metaphorical truth and the literal truth. How do these things merge together to being a form of holistic understanding? What are your takes on this kind of stuff? And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to do some sort of coaching, or you feel like you resonate with some of the things I mentioned in this video, then do book in a free one-on-one coaching call. I focus on working with people with, of course, intrusive thoughts, self-limiting beliefs, procrastination, people who want to become more disciplined and overcome bad habits, people in that kind of realm of things with regards to their own life and their self-development journey. I work with people in that field. So if you are interested in that, book in that free one-on-one coaching call and we can see where things go. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll speak to you in the next one.